You
Mm.
have to realize that when you get into news and media, it's a lot that comes with it.
We have a dynamic media personality and coach today, Lacey Roberts.
The world deserves to hear the rest of this story.
Good afternoon, SLAE family. I am super excited to be here today. We have a dynamic media personality and coach today. Joining us from Cincinnati, Ohio is none other than Lacey Roberts. Thank you so much for being here, Lacey.
Thank you so much for having me.
Lacey is going to give us some fantastic information. She was on the news as a television personality and has branched out and is the founder of Grace Media and Consulting. So she's going to share all kinds of great stuff with us today. But if you don't mind, Lacey, first, I'd love to know when you first started out, what inspired you to want to go into media?
So when I first started my media career, my journey in college, I always was interested in writing and telling stories, but it was more or less not the interesting part about my story. I was always more interested in my classmates' stories and seeing, well, where did you come up with that? Well, how did you get to this conclusion? So I realized I wanted to be in everybody else's business, which is what people in media do. We get in your business, but then we also translate that into different ways. And that's where I found out that I loved connecting with communities. So being a journalist, being able to find those untold, unheard stories. That was my mantra when I got into journalism. Finding the stories that you may have heard on a podcast or a radio, but you didn't see visually, for people to get to see that. That was my main goal in media. So that's how I started, by wanting to share stories that weren't getting shared to everyone.
Outstanding. And from there, you became a television personality and then you branched off. So, what made you decide to take a leap and form your own consulting company?
Well, working for the news, there's a plethora of ideas and genres of stories and things that we cover. And once you realize that there is a pattern of things that you have to cover, and there's only so much that you can cover in a minute and a half or 2 minutes, and you've sat down and talked to this dynamic person and heard their story for 2 to 3 hours, and you're like, the world deserves to hear the rest of this story. So how can I do that? So I decided to branch off and have my own company to where I could continue to have that same mantra of telling unheard stories of people that the world needed to hear. They needed to hear the why behind the person opening up a bakery in the middle of COVID, even though they knew it wasn't the greatest idea, and why they persevered. Why this mother started an organization for gun violence, because people
Mm.
didn't know that she's lost 3 out of 5 of her children to senseless gun violence. Not that her children were in the streets, but they were doing what we normally do on an everyday basis, and to bring recognition to that. So once you hear those dynamic stories, you want people to continue to know those, and you have to put them on a platform where they can be received by everybody. So I
Mm.
created my own platform to do that, but take it a step farther for other people who wanted to have the opportunity to tell their stories on TV. But how do you do that? I'm nervous when I get in front of a camera. I don't do well when I get in front of a mic. I feel better just talking to someone face to face, not knowing there may be millions or thousands of people watching. So then I developed my company to have that media training and that storytelling concept to help you get that point across to the world.
Brilliant. And then you have, a philosophy, a core training on how you help people to become camera ready, whether it is their voice, their appearance, the choice of words. Tell us a little bit about, if you don't mind, expand on that element of what you teach people.
So when we do our media training, there's 3 different steps that we go through. And the first part of that comes with a consultation. And that's probably the most important part of the media training. It lets me know what kind of media you want to appear on. So that would be TV, radio, or a podcast. And those all may be the same because you're talking about your business and it's an interview, but they're very different. And having that journalism background, I know as a journalist, when I want to interview someone for their business, I know what kind of answers or the story that I want to develop. So already in my head, I know what I want. But as a business owner, you know what you want to convey as well. So the tricky part in there is answering the questions and getting a point across that you want to make. So as far as TV, when we're putting together a package, we've got a minute and a half to do it. I've got to say some stuff. You've got to say some stuff. But if I ask you a question about your company, about how you got started, and within the first minute, you haven't gotten to your point, we only have 10 seconds to choose the best part of your sentence. And people don't know that. So then we develop and teach you how to speak in what we call sound bites. So speaking in those cohesive sound bites help you put together that story about your company and your call to action. You always want to have a call to action in your interview to make someone want to learn more about you or your business. And that also comes with picking the correct sound bites to give people enough information, but to want to make them do the research on their own. So then also goes to radio. It's different. You don't have to talk in sound bites on radio because people can't see you. They can only hear you. So then that's where we talk about your diction and your voice. You want to come across as warm, as a storytelling feature, as you can connect with the person that's sitting in their car rushing to work with their coffee, or someone in the office that may be hearing it in the background. So you have to think about those little things and you answer those questions. What's going to pique someone's interest to what you're saying without seeing you or knowing what your brand is really about?
Wow, that is
It
a
seems like a lot.
ton of information. Yet I guess also, you talk about, you don't have to worry about what somebody looks like in one case, but sometimes the way somebody looks can be distracting or helpful if they're on media, if they're on television, that is.
It can. So it also all depends. So let's take, for example, I've had two separate clients just this month so far. It was a baking company and they were promoting their Valentine's Day, and they were just opening their brick and mortar store. Plus they were no longer taking just custom orders. It was open to their website. So they were going on TV and they wanted to represent one of their burn cakes where the cake burns away an image. And so she was talking about what she wanted to wear, and she's talking about colors. And I said, well, what are the colors of your bakery? And they were totally opposite of the colors you're wearing. And I said, you want to make sure that when you're picking out colors that represent your brand, if it's not something that you can wear that has a logo, you want to make sure those colors reference back to your brand. So when people remember seeing you, if they can't hear you, they can also look when they go to your socials and recognize, hey, that girl was wearing pink and turquoise. Her brand colors are pink and turquoise. She's the lady who owns the bakery. So you have to think about those kinds of things. Now, we all love looking good with patterns and colors. You want to stand out with your jewelry and everything, but you have to forget, once you turn those bright lights on, all those patterns get distorted by how much light is coming through on that camera. And you can't tell unless you're at home watching on TV. So if you're going to pick a pattern, make it only have two different patterns to the pattern. If you're going to pick a color, pick three at the max. Don't pick patterns that are zigzaggy or you've got a lot of those checkered patterns because they don't look as good as you think they do when you take the picture afterwards. So you have to remember that. And then also for radio and podcast, even though you can't see yourself, the world of media has changed so much. Those are now being videotaped. So no, you don't have to look as professional because it is a more relaxed setting, but that's where I would definitely decide to have something with your branding or your logo on it, even if it's a coffee cup, a pen, a piece of paper, a pad, something you can give to them as a promotional item so that that's something that they can show or talk about and describe during your radio interview as well.
Well, I'm just saying, I'm going to have homework after this myself. I need to hire you. Now, you have been in Cincinnati forever, basically. And how had that influenced you? I mean, Cincinnati is a wild and exciting city. Sometimes it's called the nasty natty,
Oh my goodness. Yes.
What is it like there, and how has that impacted you? And how does that impact you in your training people too?
I think from the beginning of my journey, like you said, from growing up in your hometown, you always want to leave. You're like, I got to get out of here. I need to leave. But as I developed in my media journey, there are markets in TV and radio, and they go by size. Cincinnati is in the top 50 markets for TV and radio as far as viewers, promotions, businesses that flock here. And people often forget that we have Procter and Gamble, we have GE. So all those products you use or you pick up at your Kroger or Walmart, they're coming from little nasty Cincinnati, you know what I'm saying? So it's like when I thought about the trajectory of where I wanted my business to go, I had to think about the uniqueness that Cincinnati has and why people flock to this city. So that kind of also made me think about, why should I stay? Why should I want to develop what's here? Because when people come here, we have a lot of people that are not from this city, but it's a culture shock to them when they come because we're so eclectic. So it's like, you got to kind of get people used to it. So it's like, why not stay here and develop and kind of help people see how to appeal to the people of Cincinnati, how to kind of get into us. We are warm, we are welcoming, but you got to crack that shell, because the first thing we're going to ask you when you meet you, I don't care, Leanne, we're going to ask you what high school you went to. That can tell us a lot about you there. And if you say high school we don't recognize, off the bat, we're putting up a little wall, because we're just used to being conservative and really dealing with people that we want to deal with. But Cincinnati is just a city of its own. I love it. And I felt like since I started my business, instead of leaving and starting it somewhere else, people say you're only as successful as where you start.
Oh, I love that. And you've really shown your commitment. You do a lot of community service and projects. Maybe you'll share with everybody a little bit about some of the things you do and how that ties to your branding and your mission.
So a lot of community service, when you're in the media, you meet a lot of nonprofits. You do a lot of food drives around the holidays, and it turns your thinking. When you think about time and your family time, but you get to see these other families and these other people, it really makes you grateful for what you have, but also wanting to spread that love and spread that kindness and anything that you can give to the community. So off bat there, helping out with our local food distributions. So I'm very involved in my church. So actually getting them connected to these nonprofits instead of my church hosting a food drive. No, let's take our efforts and the people that we have in this committee and go to St. Paul and let's do their food and coat drive. They need volunteers. Like, let's go where the help is already needed, where we can service more of our community and help our community members sign up. So I love doing that. Also within my church outreach, we do something with our seniors. So a little on the side, I used to do ballet and I used to dance. So helping them kind of get into shape, going to the Ys, going with them. It's so much fun to see how much movement and life they still have. So don't give up on your seniors there. And then also just doing community outreach work whenever I can with the nonprofits I have right now. One I'm working with, Brown Hands Literacy. She does so much with helping making sure that brown and Black kids have access to reading materials. So actually going to these after school programs and just reading to these kids is just so fundamental, and their eyes light up. There's just so much that you could do there when you talk about community service.
Oh, that's awesome. And you actually go read to them too. That's really nice. That's great.
Yes, it is. And it's across from the
What a cool
elementary school
charity.
where I used to go to. So it's like a tutoring program under Whiz Kids that we go through, and we
That's
help them
awesome.
there. That's also connected to my church as well.
Excellent. You have a great church too,
I
among other
do.
things. So now that you're in this position, you're not at the TV station, you're full-time running this and the community work and the church, and you're building your own branding. How do you balance it? What does a day look like, for you? And how do you balance and prioritize spinning all those plates at the same time? Because there's a lot of busy people who watch this, trust me.
Well, first, lots of coffee. No, I love, I
That
have to
could be
have,
the answer.
I have to have my quad espresso before my feet touch the floor, but no, seriously. Time management. I think working in news, knowing that you have such amount of time that day, you come up with the story idea that day. I'm calling companies that day to see if they can do an interview. Then I have to find the video to go with it. Then I have to find the place to edit the video. And I realize I'm doing all of that within a 6-hour shift, because the last 2 hours of my shift, I'm going live to talk about what I talked about. So I can't keep
Mm.
editing. I can't keep doing the story. So that alone, being in news, helped me really manage my time. So now I decided that in my mornings, it's best for me, I wanted to sleep in, because for news, I was usually getting up at 2 a.m. So I'm like, I'm
I
gonna
was
sleep in.
wondering how
I'm
early.
gonna sleep in now. No, don't do that. Don't do it to yourself. Go ahead, get up early. Start a routine of getting up early, whatever time works for you. For me, that works at 5 a.m. so that
Mm.
I can at least get out my crinks and all my little crinkles by 6:30. So I'm hitting the ground running by 7. So if you wake up by 8 and you give yourself time to wake up, eat breakfast, it's already 10, 11 o'clock and you've got no time to get anything done. It's almost lunchtime. You should have 2 meetings by now. So getting up at 5, making sure I'm getting my first meeting in by 8, but also making sure that I'm giving myself lunchtime, time to like rethink, rebrand. And what I do is I schedule my days. I will schedule like a hard, long day. So 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. if I have to, 7 p.m. depending on where I'm going. If we have to make it a dinner meeting, we can. We got to do happy hour, we will. And if I do have a full day like that, I make sure that when I do schedule the rest of my week, if I have 2 back-to-back, there's one day where I'm not doing any meetings. This is where I'm catching up, I'm breathing, I'm debriefing. And on a Friday, I stop taking meetings at noon so that I can really focus and get myself prepared, not only for that Friday, but for that Monday, and to make sure that I do give myself time on the weekends, which I didn't at first. I thought because I'm an entrepreneur, I have a business, you have to work 7 days a week. 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. And doing that was burning me out, and I was being less productive than what I wanted to be. So take your breaks, take your off days. It's important.
I love everything that's come out of your mouth so far, but particularly that because, years ago when I left law and became an entrepreneur, I started doing that 7 days a week, 7 days a week. And somebody pulled me aside. He said, you can't. He said, you will never be your best if you don't take a break. And then I thought about it. I'm like, well, God took a day off. So who do I think I am? Yeah. So I stopped working on Sundays. I'm like, I just honestly took my phone, I throw it in a drawer, I'm out. And it's really interesting whenever once in a blue moon, someone will approach me about doing something on a Sunday and I say, that's my day for God and family. And I've never had any pushback. Most people are like, oh,
Yeah.
it's awesome. So I'm glad because I try and preach that, but you have a lot more authority than me. So maybe you'll help get the message to people.
I got you. I got you. We'll put it on a t-shirt.
Yeah, exactly. I'll buy the shirt. Let me know. I'll buy your first merch with that. But for somebody doing what you're doing, it's so demanding, it's so entrepreneurial, it's so powerful. So you taking that time is a great example for other entrepreneurs, other people going into media, other women who are juggling too many things. You're like a knight and a knightess,
I like that word.
a
Also
queen
wanted
in
to.
shining armor. We'll do that. How's that?
I love it.
And then before we wrap up, let's talk about that. So if you've done a lot, it is difficult to make it in media. You ended up on the news. It's difficult to be an entrepreneur. You've got this media consulting company. You've got all these things going on. If somebody's watching this and they either say, oh, I would love to, get into media and be a TV personality, or I just want to start a business and I'm wrestling with taking that leap from W2 out into the big, scary entrepreneurial world. Based on the many, many things you've accomplished, Lacey, what advice would you give somebody?
Well, first, if you're going to get into media, seek out what type of media you want to be in. That's what I would first say. Everybody says, oh, you can be a reporter for TV, you can be one for radio, but they're totally different. You have to realize that when you get into news in media, it's a lot that comes with it. And you have to think about the position that you want. You can be an enterprise reporter. You can be a sports reporter. You can be a journalist for a newspaper. People still, it's online, so it's making a comeback. You can be on radio where you can really shine with your personality. So if you want to get into media, first, the biggest thing is to decide what media you think fits you best. And then after that, get you some media training. It's imperative. If you didn't go to school for it, you can find a school out there or call me. I got you. We can help you do that. To get into that media so we can talk about the voice. You said the voice. Everybody says, how do you do the news anchor voice? It just like comes out of you. It's like in the pit of your stomach. I'll do it before I leave. But it just happens. But someone can teach you how to do that. And it's that simple. So find someone who can really help you on that journey. Again, call me to do that. And then also with being an entrepreneur, if you're scared to do it, just do it. Because if you keep thinking about it, if you wake up and you're at your job now and you're like, oh, that's a great idea for my business, or that's a great idea for my business. If it keeps happening, that means you're meant to do it. That means you're meant to do it, and do it scared. But trust me, you'll be so much happier that you did it.
Fantastic. So as we wrap up, we'll use your news anchor voice. Can you give out any social media website contact information so if people want to follow you, learn from you, hire your consulting skills, or any of that? Give it all to us. Go ahead.
Hi, my name is Lacey Roberts, and if you would like to hire me for your media training services, you can contact me at Grace Media Marketing at outlook.com. Again, Grace, Grac Media, Media, Marketing, Marketing at outlook.com, or you can find me on my social media at Lacey Roberts TV.
Love it. Well, thank you so much for being here, inspiring us, and helping a whole generation of people who are tackling the world of many platforms, because there's so many platforms out there right now. It's amazing. So thank you for being here. We appreciate you so much, and for your devotion to your city as well, which is really incredible.
Oh, thank you so much for having me, Leanne. This is a great group of women, and I'm excited to share and be here for anyone that needs help and to
Awesome.
connect.
And if I had been trained by you, I would say, and that's all, or something like that. I have no training, so this is all we're getting today. But Lacey's awesome. Make sure you follow her on her social. And if you're looking to climb into that world, she's fantastic. So take advantage of her training and her consulting. And thanks, everyone. We'll be back next week. Take care.